Hi, and welcome back to this week's Parshat Shir on Sefer Maayan Beit Hashoeva. I'd like to share with you two thoughts that Rav Schwab teaches about this Parsha of Beshalach and this Shabbos Shira. Beginning of the Parsha, the Torah says, "Vayasev Elokim es ha'am derech hamidbar Yam Suf," that Hashem guided the nation through the desert, through the Yam Suf area. V'chamushim alu b'nei Yisrael meretz Mitzrayim, and it describes the way that Bnei Yisrael exited from Egypt as chamushim. And the word chamushim is a difficult one to understand. Rashi gives two explanations for the word chamushim. The first is mizuyanim. They were armed. Chamushim alu b'nei Yisrael. They were armed, and whether they were armed physically or armed spiritually, they were armed in some fashion to go off into this travel of through the desert. However, Rashi's second commentary, chamushim, he interprets as mechumashim. Echad mishchamisha yatsu v'arba chalakim mesu b'shloshes yemei afela. Chamushim alu b'nei Yisrael is related to the word chamesh, which is 5, meaning a fifth of the Jewish people left Egypt during Yetzias Mitzrayim, and 4/5 died during Makas Choshech, during the days of darkness. A well-known Rashi. Umekora b'mechilta v'chamushim alu echad mechamisha. The makor for this Rashi is a medrash, a mechilta, that says chamushim is a fifth, echad michamisha, 1 in 5. V'yesh omrim echad mechamishim. Some say the chamushim is not literally a fifth, they were not fifthed, but rather related to the word 5, chamesh. It was not 1 in 5, but 1 in 50. V'yesh omrim echad mechamesh me'ot. And some say not 1 in 5, not 1 in 50, but 1 in 500. This whole thing, this whole explanation is very strange. If this is true, and 4/5 of Jewish people died in Egypt during Makas Choshech, that means that 30 million or 300 million Jews died on the eve of Yetzias Mitzrayim. That's catastrophic. Ve'od tamua, and it makes it even more perplexing. Shelachol hadeos nebdu kama milyonim Yisrael. However you slice it, a couple of million people died. If the interpretation of the verse is 1 in 5, im ken hayaz de ason. If that's true, this was a disaster. This was a tragedy. Umaka gedola yoser mikol hamako shesavlu Mitzrayim etma. If that's the case, then it's true that the Jews were perhaps more punished during Yetzias Mitzrayim than the Egyptians themselves. The Jewish people suffered and sustained bigger losses than the Egyptians. How could that be? That doesn't make sense in the whole calculus of Yetzias Mitzrayim. The punishment was supposed to be against the Egyptians. Ubechol Mitzrayim shvatim, ani Hashem. I'm God. I'm going to show the Egyptians who's boss, who's God. I'm going to smite the Egyptians, not smite the Jews. How do we celebrate Yetzias Mitzrayim as a wonderful, happy, redemptive event when it was catastrophic? We lost 4/5 of the Jewish people, 30 or 300 million Jews. V'nir lefarish davar zeh al pi divrei Rashi al hapasuk kol demei achicha tzoakim alai min ha'adama. Perhaps we can understand this Rashi and this Mechilta about 4/5 of the Jews dying in Egypt, but only 1/5 leaving, based on the Rashi in Parshat Bereshis, when Cain kills Hevel, and Hashem comes and says, "Kol demei achicha tzoakim alai min ha'adama." The voice of the bloods of your brother are crying out to me from the ground. Shepirshu Chazal, the Gemara in Sanhedrin records the opinion of Chazal about this pasuk, which is quoted by Rashi. Demei achicha, damo v'dam zariotav. Chazal question why it says kol demei achicha. The voice of the bloods, plural, of your brother are crying out. It should be kol dam achicha tzoakim elai min ha'adama, or tzoek elai min ha'adama. It should have been the singular. The blood, the one blood of your brother was crying out to me. Why? The bloods, the voices, multiplice bloods, multiple voices crying out to me from the ground. So Chazal say it must be referring to the blood of Hevel who was killed, and because Hevel was killed, his descendants, and his descendants' descendants, and his descendants' 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 descendants were all therefore wiped out because he didn't have the potential to bring all those generations into the world. So when one person is killed, it compounds the tragedy because actually you're killing off all the potential offspring of that person as well, which is why it's Demei Achicha, the multiple voices, the multiple blood of generations after generations that could have come from Hevel, all crying out to God from the ground. If that's true over there in Bereshis, it's true over here as well. V'chein yesh lomar kan. It's true, some people died during Makas Choshech, some people were not deserving of leaving during Yetzias Mitzrayim, but these were isolated individuals. There were a few no goodniks, a few people of pure evil who were not deserving of redemption, couldn't really go out with the Jewish people. They died in the 3 days of darkness. But if they had remained alive, over the course of generations, they would have yielded offspring that were in the millions. If you trace down hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years of their descendants, you'd reach the millions. So when the Medrash says 4/5 died, 4/5 of the Jewish people, 30 million or 300 million, it's not talking about literally 30 million Jews died in that moment. A couple of Jews died. But in the scheme of things, because those couple of Jews died, we wiped out 30 million, 300 million descendants of those people as well. And therefore, the Pasuk says, Chamushim, that they left with many less people than they could have, not in that particular moment, but over the course of Jewish history. And that is exactly what the different opinions of the Medrash are arguing about. Im hayu yotzei chalatzeim arba'a pamim shishim riba, or arba'im v'tisha pamim, or arbameos v'tisha pamim. The Medrash debates what exactly was the number. Was it, 40 times 600,000, or 49 times 600,000, or 490 times 499 times 600,000. What exactly was the number that left? Was it 1 in 5? Was it 1 in 50? Was it 1 in 500 that left, or not? So the reason they're debating that is what they must have been debating about is how to do the calculation of how many people were lost from those few yechidim. Im meshas yetzias Mitzrayim ad binyan beis hamikdash, o ad sof kol adoros, o ad le'ezeh shir acher. They were debating how you calculate the offspring. Is it from the moment of Yetzias Mitzrayim till the building of the Beis HaMikdash, or the moment of Yetzias Mitzrayim until another point in history, or the moment of Yetzias Mitzrayim till the end of time? That would yield different millions and millions and millions of numbers. 1 in 50 if it's a shorter time, 1 in 5 if it's the shorter time, 1 in 50 if it's the longer time, 1 in 500 if it's the longest time. And so that's why exactly they're debating the number of Jews that died and the number of Jews that escaped. If I could bring a proof, he says, to my explanation of this Rashi, that it wasn't really 4/5 of the Jewish people that died in Makas Choshech, but really a very few number of Jews, and the number that the Torah is giving by telling us Chamushim, that they only left with a fifth, means that in the scheme of Jewish history, because of the loss of those individuals, we actually lost 4/5 of our people. And the debate between the Tanaim of this Medrash is what exactly is the number that we attribute to those 4/5? Well, that depends how long you calculate the offspring that would have come out from those individuals. And the proof to all of this is Mimasha Pirish Rashi, Shemesu b'shloshes yimei afela. Rashi explains why they specifically died during Makas Choshech. V'lama lo mesu b'zman acher. Why didn't they die at another point, maybe later, after Makas Bechoros, or the night of Yetzias Mitzrayim, or earlier? The whole reason, says Rashi, is because God wanted them to die during the Makas Choshech when it was dark and no one could see, so that the Egyptians wouldn't really sense that there was a loss of people amongst Bnei Yisrael, so that it wouldn't look like Bnei Yisrael were weak, it wouldn't look like they were affected by the plagues. We wanted to have the plagues have the maximal effect upon the Egyptians. If they saw it was affecting the Jews as well, and they thought that they were dying from Makas Choshech, then they wouldn't have believed that Jewish people were deserving of exodus. They wouldn't believe that God was really the one bringing these masterful plagues upon the Egyptians. And so they had to cover it up, had to be non-perceivable to the larger Egyptian public. The Egyptians didn't even know they were gone because it all happened in the darkness. However, But if you take our Rashi, the Rashi of Chamushim, literally, the Mechilta, literally, that actually 4/5 of the Jewish people, 30 million or 300 million Jews, died in the plague of darkness during those 3 days. How could it be the Egyptians wouldn't have sensed it? Even if it all happened under the cover of darkness, the Egyptians woke up after 3 days and there were 30 million people missing. You don't think they would notice that? It's impossible to read the next Rashi, the Rashi about the fact that it happens during Makas Choshech, if you read our Rashi literally. So it must be that you have to read our Rashi as Rav Schwab suggests, that it's not literally saying 30 million Jews died, 4/5 Jews died on that night, but rather what it was saying is that a couple of Jews died, but because they died, their offspring of 30 million, 300 million people died off with them as well. So it really might have been non-perceptible to the Egyptians that a couple of Jews died during Makas Choshech. אלא דבר ברור כמו שפירשנו, שבאמס רק יחידים מתו ולא היה מורגש חסרון גדול בגופו של כלל ישראל. ולדוגמה, he says, let me give you a very sensitive, very difficult, but very real example of this. He gives the following example, which is jarring, which is difficult to hear. אם אומרים שהנאצים הארורים יימח שמם הרגו 6 מיליונים מאחינו בני ישראל לפני 50 שנה, הנה היום אנו יכולים לומר שהרגו 10 מיליונים, שהרי במשך 50 שנה האחרונים היו כל הנהרגים פרים ורבים בבנים ובני בנים, וכן בשנים הבאות בכל שנה ישרע המספר של חללי עמנו, ודמם ודם זרם צועקים על השם מן האדמה, והוא יספרך ינקום לעיננו נכנס דם עבדיו השפוך. He says, we think about the Holocaust, we say that the Nazis killed off 6 million Jews. But if you think about it, they didn't only kill 6 million Jews. If they had allowed those 6 million Jews to live, then in the 50 years that had transpired since the Holocaust ended to the time when he was writing this Sefer, there would have been many, many dozens and dozens of more millions of Jews. And so you could actually say that the Nazis didn't kill 6 million, they killed tens and 20s and hundreds of millions of Jews because they killed the potential offspring of those people who might have given birth to children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren had they been given the opportunity to live. It's a very jarring thought to each of us, something I'm sure many of us have thought about in the past, and must have been a very jarring thought as Rav Schwab was sharing it with Kalas Adas Yeshurim at the Breuer's German Jewish community in Washington Heights, where he was the Rav, a community that very narrowly escaped Germany, Nazi Germany. Rav Breuer was taken out, I believe, in 1939, and Rav Schwab himself escaped Europe just before the Holocaust, coming to America. And many of them, unfortunately, did not escape. So many families in the Breuer's community had sustained losses during the Holocaust, understood what was lost in terms of their own Frankfurt and German community, and so saying this to them must have had a tremendous resonance. This is Rav Schwab's answer to the problem with our Rashi of Chamushim alu bnei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. One more quick thought that Rav Schwab shares. Of course, as their Jewish people are on the banks of the Yam Suf, the Egyptians are behind them, the sea is in front of them, they panic, they don't know what to do. Moshe intercedes on their behalf, telling them to stand still and that Hashem would save them once again. And as he turns to Hashem, begs for help, Hashem says, Ma titzak elai, daber b'nei Yisrael v'yiseu. Why are you praying to me? Why are you calling to me? Tell the Jewish people to go. One of the most studied verses, psukim, in this week's Parsha. So, of course, the Mechilta says, Amar Eliezer Omer, Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu Moshe. The Medrash suggests that really Hashem was saying to Moshe in this moment was, Moshe, Banai Nesunim B'tzara, Hayam Soger, Vesone Rodef, V'ata Omer Umar B'betfila, Ma titzak elai. My people, he says to Moshe, are suffering, my people are in danger, the enemy is chasing after us, and you stand here and are davening? Why are you calling out to me? There are times when you should say lengthy prayers, and times that are exigent circumstances, like the one you find yourself in, when you should shorten your prayers. Kelna Rafan Allah, like the prayer for Miriam's refuah, very short. Hashem, heal her. Hareze lekatzer. Vesnapel lifnei Hashem 40 yom v'arbim laila, hareze laharich. Medrash gives the example of a long prayer when Moshe Rabbeinu mentions that he prayed before God for 40 days and 40 nights. That's a long prayer. But Kelna Rafan, it's a short prayer. There are times to say long prayers, there are times to say short prayers. Moshe Rabbeinu Matitzakila. This is not a time for a long prayer. My children are suffering, they're in danger, short prayer. Chazal were suggesting that we don't always need long prayers because, of course, Hashem knows our thoughts. Hashem understands the way that we think and our aspirations and our hopes and our requests. So we don't need to elongate our tefillah to spell it out in as lengthy a way as we would spell it out for human beings. Nevertheless, we do find circumstances where long tefillah is called for. So if long tefillah is not really necessary because God understands all of our thoughts, why is longer prayer in the right circumstances, not like here at Yam Suf, but in other circumstances, why is longer tefillah called for? Why is longer tefillah appropriate? I understand over here that according to Rashi, according to the Medrash, Moshe shouldn't have been marich b'tefillah. He should have prayed to God, but with a short prayer, something very quick, because God understands the thoughts of human beings, so we should express our thoughts very quickly. Hashem will understand the rest, He'll interpolate the rest, and if our people are in danger, let's not spend too much time davening. God knows our thoughts anyways. But there are other times, the Medrash is suggesting, when people are not in danger, there's no exigent circumstance where longer prayer is called for and is necessary. But why? If God could understand it all in one sentence, why take so much time to express it? Excuse me. Saying lengthy prayers in the right circumstance is called for, is praiseworthy. Why? Because the true point of prayer is not just to make the request or articulate the request, but it's to connect in a meaningful way and to cleave to the Borei Olam who you face in prayer. And the longer you face HaKadosh Baruch Hu in prayer, the longer that your prayer is, the longer you have to speak, to develop the conversation, and ultimately to develop the relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu as well. And therefore, over here, perhaps it wasn't a time to start developing a relationship. Perhaps this was a time for short tefillah. Perhaps when Miriam was suffering was a time for short tefillah. But in other circumstances of life, in most circumstances of life, when there's nothing dangerous pressing on us in terms of a national need in that particular moment, hamarach b'tefillah mishubach. The taking a long time for prayer is appropriate and is praiseworthy because it allows us that opportunity to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a very special way. May we all be successful at that great endeavor of tefillah. Shabbat Shalom.